Hi everyone, this is Heather. I'm working on my final presentation and wrapping up the presentation that I needed to share with you a little bit earlier. I am working on a case study right now that focuses on anxiety disorders and depression with young women who are dually diagnosed. And part of the reason is we find that with young women they are often underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed when they have something related to generalized anxiety disorder or depression or post-traumatic stress disorder in conjunction with something like a substance abuse concern. And so I kind of pulled together some of what I've been working on with one individual and then some pieces from some other cases I've worked with, and then, of course, the literature review to talk a little bit about some of the challenges and successes that are involved in treating people who have different anxiety and depression disorders, particularly young women. One of the things that we see is that major depressive disorder, general anxiety disorder, and PTSD are often found in coordination or in conjunction with substance abuse disorders in young women who have experienced some sort of past trauma or disturbing incident during their life. And so what we find is that young women are 2 to 3 times more likely than their male counterparts to experience dual diagnosis. And so as we've been studying in class, the trick with dual diagnosis can sometimes be resolved through differentiation and trying to understand which presenting problem needs to be addressed on which level. And so finding ways to do that with young women, we're finding more and more it happens successfully in a community-based program. So I'm going to talk just quickly about some of the community-based interventions and some of the individual treatment plan steps that we've been putting together as we think about how do we pull all of these pieces together. We are finding that young women are experiencing the coexistence of anxiety disorders with substance abuse, oftentimes because they have been subjected to some form of physical or sexual assault during the course of their early lifetime. And so finding ways to help them to deal with that trauma and that tragedy, and also to develop resilience and to see that there's something down the road is part of that whole dual diagnosis treatment and the trans-theoretical model to integrative approaches. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Again, the client is 19 years old. She's exhibiting anxiety and self-reports that it's interrupting her daily routine. She has sought out support through the student counseling program, and she has shared that she's had problems or counseling related to substance abuse in the past. But she doesn't think it's a problem now because she doesn't really party very much, and she knows a lot of her peers do. She has become withdrawn lately and is less social, and that happens when her anxiety begins to increase. She's somebody who tends to withdraw, and so finding ways to connect her back into a community so she can develop those healthy lifestyle supports is something that we're interested in. She has shared in intake that the sexual assault happened on campus her first year here as a student, and so the idea of making her feel safe again in a place where she was once unsafe is an important part of what we're trying to do. The problem indicators break down into 3 major areas: relationships, healthy lifestyle habits, and then behavior. Related to relationships, again, she becomes withdrawn and avoids social settings whenever her anxiety spikes, and that leads to other problems, including healthy lifestyle habits. She needs to maintain a regular sleeping pattern. Because she's dropping out of social settings, it's often the case that she can just sleep in the afternoon, or she gets out of class and she can drop into bed or hide under the covers. And so then that creates a cycle of not sleeping at night, and that's problematic. And feeds into other problems and other behaviors that are popping up in her daily routine. She also needs to make sure that she's not self-medicating with that history of substance abuse. There are steps that we can take to support her so that this doesn't become a reoccurring problem, and so we want to be sure to do that. As far as behavior is concerned, she has self-reported that she avoids her parents when she gets depressed. She lives on campus, and so being an on-campus student makes it a little bit easier for her to be able to just kind of drop out and hide for a while. The other problem she's having is related to daydreaming. She's been doing a lot of daydreaming and having concentration problems, which means she's missing important information in class. And that means, it kind of all ties into this cycle of not being able to really feel in control of your life. And that's something that we want to be able to help her reclaim. Problem statement and client goals. The client says she wants to become less socially isolated and develop new friendships. And so the goal attached to that would be to become more active in a new club or organization on campus. The client also says that she needs to develop patterns of healthy lifestyle in daily life. And so a goal would be getting her set up with the student health program so that she can have overall physical in an environment or at a time when it's not a risky situation. It's just kind of a matter of course. We also want to we want to connect her with a wellness coach who can talk with her about those different dimensions of wellness, being involved in social communities, finding ways to exercise your spiritual side, healthy eating, all of those kinds of things that kind of tie together and help us make it through the day. And then the third area needs to be forming a plan for maintaining connection with her family and finding focus. She has admitted that it's easy for her to kind of just step out of the world when she is having high anxiety episodes. And so what we want to do is to help her find a safe way to kind of re-enter in. And I think some of the interventions that we've talked about are appealing to her, and so we can use those in different ways. One of the interventions that I learned about during my literature review is the school intervention model. And this is actually coming out of the secondary school situation or environment. Since she is 19 years old and there are some programs in place already, I think that it's something that's kind of relevant. The school intervention model is one that uses the educational environment as a way to teach all students about mindfulness and self-compassion. Those are things that help people to be resilient in the face of trauma and tragedy, and learning about it not just afterwards but in advance, so that you have this idea that something unexpected happened, and so this is why I'm feeling this way, and this is how I might be able to manage it better. That's the kind of thing that those who haven't yet really experienced tragedy benefit from, and then those who have, it helps them to understand better the way that they can take back control over their lives, or a sense of control over their lives. And again, I think particularly for young women, being able to function in a community setting that provides networking and support and encourages communication is something that helps to ease all of those things that happen in the individual treatment plan. Now, the individual treatment plan would involve initially pre-screening for substance abuse, anxiety, depression, and readiness to change. Those just kind of provide a little bit of background and history so we have an idea of what we're working with. We can then start talking about using reflection and exploration on the client's behalf in terms of narrative therapy, asking them to kind of tell their story, asking her to kind of re-envision what her story could be like one day, and then offering that within a context of cognitive behavior therapy so that we can talk about, these are what your strengths are, these are where your challenges are, this is what you can do in order to kind of take control and make change, and I want to help you think about that in a different kind of way. And so that's something that we would be doing. Weekly administration of the patient health questionnaire is a regular part of progress monitoring, and it's quite simple. It's it's a 9-item inventory, and filling it out each week kind of gives us a visual model of where the client is in terms of physical well-being, sense of self, their mood, and the risk, if there is any risk for self-harm. This is an example of it. The patient health questionnaire that we introduced monitors for mood, sense of self, physical state, and risk for harm, as I mentioned. And what we can see in this particular charting is that there are 3 areas that seem to kind of spike and dive at the same time. And they fall along the lines of little interest in having pleasure in life, feeling down or hopeless, tired, little energy. These are all areas that you would expect to kind of be together. So if you're having problems with disrupted sleep, you're obviously going to be having problems with energy. And so if you're not feeling in control of your life, then you can see, sure, it makes sense that you're experiencing some sense of hopelessness right now. We can make changes for that. And one of the things that I think is really important about working within the intra-professional team is being able to contact other people for referrals for information, and working with the client in a really collaborative way so we can say, okay, it looks like we're seeing some patterns here in this part of your life through our lens. Let's see if somebody else has an idea of what's going on too, and then maybe we can make some connections instead of miss those opportunities. So again, following the line graph, we were able to see where there were similarities and disparities in the differences in experiencing daily routine. one of the things that I think is really important within the trans-theoretical model of intervention is to use ABA when that's possible. If it's not necessary, if you can introduce some baseline data and then try and explore with a different intervention and then get your desired result, that's great. One of the things that I want to see happen for me as a practitioner is to be able to develop a really strong skill set in being able to make changes between interventions as needed. I think that when anxiety is a part of what we're dealing with, particularly related to trauma, what we're finding out is that people have triggers in different ways, and that we might try one intervention and it might work really well for you, but if I try it with someone else, it just might make them fall apart. And I have to be able to be sensitive to where my clients are in the moment and in their process, and be able to make changes that are appropriate for working with them. In conclusion, what we've found in studying young adults with general anxiety disorder, depressive disorder, or post-traumatic stress disorder is that these clients often have 2 or 3 times more likely experience with substance abuse. And so we want to be able to kind of commingle these different disorders, but also differentiate between them so that we can figure out best how to offer a treatment plan. Sometimes I wonder about how solution-focused approaches work within dual diagnosis situations, because if we get to the answer before we figured out what the root of the problem is, maybe we're just jumping ahead too much. I'm not sure. But I think that there are lots of ways to use different kinds of interventions in collaboration so that we can help people to learn to be really mindful and self-compassionate, so they can manage triggers on a daily basis if they experience them, so they can divine some sort of mindfulness program that will help them to feel really centered and focused, and then over the long term design some sort of wellness program and life goals that will allow them to kind of move forward in a way that helps them to feel really in control of their lives. So I think it's challenging work. I think it's really important work. We all have women in our lives, and so finding ways to help them address problems that they have is important. And then by extension, when we learn how to help specific populations, we can generalize that information to other communities, and in the end, we're just going to be able to, I think, help a lot more people. So thank you for watching, and happy graduation, everybody.